All right, so I am here with Summer Like the Season, Tasha, Summer, Scott. They just got done playing at Ferndale Pride, and we're sitting down outside of an apartment complex, it looks like, and we're going to talk about some of their music. So I wanted to start by breaking down the song Wakey, which is your most recent song that you guys put out. One of the things I'm always curious about is like what came first in that track? Like what was the first part of it?
Ooh, that's a good question. With that track, I don't remember exactly what came first in laying it down, but I remember what made me decide that it was a song we're not tossing, because I make a lot of starts to songs. Mm-hmm. And I think there was a lot of playing around probably with the vocal samples and the drums first, but the bass line was what made me say, like, this is a song that is going to get put out. Like, as soon as that came in, that was kind of like, okay, this is going to be a song, not just a 20-second thing that I throw away.
Got it. That's really interesting considering the bass line comes in so late in the song.
Yeah.
Because the first rotation of like the intro section and then that like first verse A section, if you want to call it that, are bassless.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So that bass part came first. Why did you choose to leave it to come in until so late in the song if that was such an important part?
I thought it kind of hit in a really cool way. I wanted to experiment with things not all coming in at once, but having this staggered feeling, because the chorus is already kind of big and it starts with a pretty big chorus, but I loved the idea of it kind of dropping down to very little, because that doesn't happen often in our other songs. I'm a like
maximalist
for sure, to the maximal degree.
To the max.
I'm a maximalist to
to
the max. So I wanted to kind of experiment with not always doing that, or at least building into that.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. It worked well, I thought. But then also I noticed as you guys were just playing it live, because I happened to walk up right when you started it, which I was really glad. Tasha, the guitar part you're playing is different than the one that was on the recorded version. What made you choose to kind of throw a variation on it?
I feel like for a lot of the songs, because Summer writes specifically in the box, a lot of the times when she brings it to us, there's a lot of things that are kind of more malleable when performing it live, and that was just something I think just sort of happened as we jammed on it.
Oh, we actually changed it a bunch.
We went through many variations before.
Yeah, because
Right.
now it does the... because for the live, we were talking about trying to make it a little more dramatic. Mm-hmm.
Because in the recording, the drums they drop out fully, and it's just like an 808 kick for a while. But when we did that live, especially because we open with it a lot, it kind of felt like it got
sunk into
too
it.
little.
Sad
Yeah. So we added in the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da to make it like, so it has like an 80s rock anthem thing
'cause it's a
happening.
very
Kind of
driving
appeals to my
intro
Joan
thing.
Jett aesthetic anyway.
Yeah. So we tried to make it more of like a anthem for the opening of the set. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. That makes sense. And then one of the things I found really interesting about that is it seems like, are those your voice? Is that your voice that you're sampling, or is it just a vocal sample?
It's my voice,
Okay.
yeah.
But after you got that intro part and then you do the first A section, it goes into where you're talking about with the dropped out 808 kick thing. And then right in the second half of that section, the melody shifts from like a really simple kind of straightforward thing to when you start singing the primary colors line.
Uh-huh.
That to me seems to be the point where the song goes from like a more synthy kind of pop song to almost like into more like avant-garde Bjorky territory.
Right, yeah. I actually remember when I was writing this song, we had talked about writing a song that would be a little more accessible, because I like really weird stuff, but we're a pop rock indie band and we wanted to have something that people could kind of glom onto. So I wrote a very poppy chorus, and then I wanted to kind of like lure people into accidentally listening to a weird song.
So that was a very conscious choice of like, all right, here's where it gets like weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, here's where I get to introduce
Surprise.
something that sounds interesting to me, which for me, music that is predictable throughout just kind of loses me, even if it's really good. Like, even if it's like really good people playing it and well written, it's just, if something doesn't like make me go, what? Because I just do sound for bands constantly. I'm just at shows constantly. I hear so much music, so I'm now at the place that I just like music that makes me go, what? But I wanted you to get sucked in before you go, what?
Got it.
Yeah.
And now you've already put in so much time, so you're probably going to listen to the rest of the song.
You're stuck.
You're stuck.
You're stuck with listening to
trapped.
us.
I'm just obsessed with too the rhythm of those, like the minimalist 808 hits and just the hi-hat, or like it might be a really quiet snare sample. I was trying to decide. Did you plot those rhythms out first, or were you just kind of what software do you use?
I use Logic.
Logic, okay. Did you plot those out like before you had input them in MIDI, or were you just kind of like picking and choosing as you were going? How was the process for that?
Ooh, I'm trying to remember. I do both ways.
Okay.
It depends whether it starts. There's so much bouncing back and forth now between. It used to be that I was not as good at drums as I am at producing, so I would do everything in the box and then kind of figure it out on drums and then go back and forth. Now I feel a lot more confident on drums, so I do a lot more on drums and then go to the box and back and forth. So with Wakey, I'm not entirely sure, but I think that I did a lot of, I think I played it, I'm obsessed with the caps lock keyboard, which is like, if you use, it's not even that anymore, the Logic 9, if you hit caps lock, it would bring up a MIDI keyboard that turned your like ABC typing keyboard into a keyboard. They changed the shortcut, it's not even caps lock anymore, but I still call it that. I don't like using like a real keyboard to do drum inputting. I really like playing it on the caps lock keyboard.
Interesting.
I don't know
I don't
why.
know if I know anybody else production-wise who does that, but that's cool.
I know, it's because I think it's just, I think it's weird. And and it has become something that I've gotten so good at, so I can do it anywhere. Like, the thing about it is you don't have to. I love the idea that I can be.
I watched you do that at a coffee shop in Providence for like hours.
Yeah,
Whacking on your laptop.
this song "Chewing Gum and Opium" I wrote on an airplane.
Okay.
I just like the idea that you can just like pop up and like write a song without anyone even knowing. I think you're typing an email.
Really poorly.
Really bad.
Yeah.
Email is just FD, FD, FD over and over again.
Yeah, a very like strange email. Anyway, it's gonna be weird whether it's. But yeah, so the answer to your question is I'm not totally sure which one I started on for this song, but it often goes back and forth.
Okay. Because just the way that the places the kicks were landing were really interesting, especially in the first half of that section where you have like a very minimal amount of. It was I had it counted out at one point, but it was very minimal. And then so one thing you guys do a lot of is obviously you're blending a lot of traditional like acoustic and then like electric guitar. Parts with more produced digital parts.
Right, yeah.
So what do you guys kind of see as the challenges you encounter when doing that, and how do you overcome them, or are you not too concerned with balancing things?
The challenges mainly come live for me.
Okay.
I think, I mean, they do come in the songwriting process in that if I write a song purely on guitar without going back and forth, it's hard to all of a sudden add in electronics. To me, electronics are part of the soundscape to make textures, and if a song is like fully written on guitar, I often have a problem melding them. But if I'm able to go back and forth while I'm writing the song, I usually don't find that to be as hard as live. I would say we have a huge struggle with it, and the only way that it's possible is really Scott.
Okay.
He
a
plays.
computer.
He plays the computer.
Oh yeah.
Amongst many other things. But yeah, I mean, we don't want to play to a click. I've played in bands that have played to a clicks, and it's. I understand why people do it, but it's just not fun for me. I mean, I like practicing to a click, but live I just like to feel like the show can go. It can breathe.
It can all go horribly wrong.
I like being able
Danger.
to. Yeah, I like the danger.
She likes the weirdness.
It's
She likes the
exciting.
danger.
And so the only way to not do it to a click when you're melding live stuff and electronics is to have the samples not have too much rhythmic information so that Scott can play them and he controls the rhythm. So to be more specific, it's if it were to go, you know, if the sample was ba 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 ba, that's too much. It would have to get cut so it goes ba,
Yeah.
and then he would go ba
And then he plays
ba
it.
ba 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 ba. You know, yeah. So we spent a lot of time cutting and recutting and going like, well, this didn't work live because we could hear it getting
Shifting
off.
and-
So sometimes editing the samples to be different for
Yeah.
live because
Okay.
the texture gets filled by the guitar that doesn't happen in the recording or something like that. So it's
Yeah, and to go-
that's a hard
so
balancing
we do
act.
like we grab. Summer writes everything. Like Summer goes and punishes her laptop for
So
a
many
few
tracks.
days.
3 or 4 keys missing.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then Summer shows up and goes like, "Is this a song?" We're like,
Sounds
"Yeah,
like
it seems
song.
like a song." And then we have to. There's generally like
Dissect
100
tracks.
tracks.
Okay.
And so we have to
Between 4
figure out
limbs.
what is the most important, what gets filled by the live instrumentation, what do we pull from these and how do we cut them, and then what's gonna blend well in a live environment as opposed, because you know you throw on headphones and you can mix anything to death, but as far as like pushing something through a
Yeah.
live system,
You're much more limited. Yeah.
we're like cutting and remixing all of Summer's stuff like every week
for that lifestyle.
to just like
yeah.
cut it further.
So to answer, balance is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Balance is what we basically obsess over, and Summer's like threatened cutting songs entirely because like we're just not filling in all the spots right now. You know, so the balance is what we really are focused on the most for a live show, I think.
And live, Tasha does a lot of really cool things with that
yeah.
are unconventional with the pedal board on her guitar. That often are there's sounds that happen in the box that were like, I wouldn't even imagine how you would make it on a guitar, but she's goes like, I can do it, and then so we'll have it something that she's playing instead of Scott triggering because
She's doing so many other things.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, let me free you up a little. Yeah.
That's funny. So after it does the kind of rotation, it goes into that heavier part in the song. Was that an instance of you saying, all right, it's been one thing for too long, or like one texture for too long, so now I'm going to jump into a kind of a new heavier space, as you said about getting boring and predictable, or is that another thought process that was triggering that?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to go somewhere different. That was kind of. I thought it was interesting to experiment with going to a bridge in kind of the middle of a song,
Okay.
instead of its typical after it went A B
Yeah.
C A B in the song.
Yeah.
I guess it would be A B C A B A.
Yeah.
Because it ends in the chorus step. Anyway, but yeah, so I wanted to experiment with a different place of the bridge, and just the heavier wasn't really what I imagined when I was starting the song. It kind of is what naturally fell into place. What?
I did that. I
Yeah.
think. I'm like,
She liked it. She was like, this is,
I mean,
yeah, your influence.
I've sort of my
Tasha plays some
overall
punk
influence
band
has sort of
and-
just
yeah.
made Summer sharper, like not like sharper wit, but like just crunchier overall.
Yeah.
I mean, she's very like ethereal and textury, and then I'm like, I've got this screaming guitar,
Okay.
so it just sort of blends.
The Joan Jett
It just sort
aesthetic,
of
as you
happens.
mentioned
Again,
earlier.
it happens.
I'm a huge Joan Jett fan. Like,
She does
I
not
definitely.
hate Joan Jett.
No, I'm just kidding.
Here's a new band rumor.
She
Summer
told me
hates
she
Joan Jett.
hated him.
No, I'm a huge Joan Jett fan. I like crunchier stuff,
She's
but
crunchy.
but
She gets
Summer.
crunchy.
Nobody is doubting your crunchy credentials, okay?
Right. Definitely my
Crunchy,
influence has
but
kind of made
she's-
her stuff tilt that way a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Got it. Yeah, that's really cool. And then one other question I had too was listening through other tracks as well. And I think you kind of answered this, but I wanted to ask it specifically. Is there's very rarely a time on the drums where there's like a strict backbeat happening.
yeah,
There's usually a 2, or sometimes there's a 4. There's usually not a 2 and a 4.
yeah.
Never.
So why, like, what do you got against a backbeat? I guess is the best way to ask it.
Yeah,
Predictable.
I don't
Does
know.
it ever happen?
That would be
The
in the
cl-
one song
the-
that we don't play anymore and we never recorded. There was one song when you talk about me.
Oh right, yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
a
that had a
backbeat, yeah.
normal
kind
shape.
of.
Then it
Probably
goes
don't play
to
it.
only because then it goes to its bridge. it goes to a really wild beat that's like super not
not
conventional.
The heavier part in the middle of Wakey
It's close.
Is close. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you're ghosting the two a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't. That's a good question. I guess
It'd be totally unexpected for us to do it, so maybe we should throw it in there.
Yeah. I really like drum beats that kind of draw you in a weird groove. I think that drummers in bands I've played in previous have always had like really interesting influences, like grabbing from a lot of jazz and just kind of more experimental beats, and so that's always what I was that was always what I was drawn to. And I'm not a real drummer.
Okay.
This has all
You
been a farce.
could have fooled me.
Yeah, I grew up. My main instrument is piano.
Okay.
I grew up in a classical piano household, and I was definitely not allowed to play the drums. But we had a drum set, and my parents both taught out of the house, so it was hard to practice because it had to be quiet for piano lessons.
So no backbeats.
But I think being into classical piano always made me be into complicated rhythms.
Okay.
And when I did try to play the drums, I always naturally had really good facility with my like small motor skills. So I could play guitar well and bass. And when I first sat down to the drums, it was just like, I'm so bad at this. I was not natural at it. I am not athletic, which I think ties into the drums. Like I could play the hi-hat well, which you hear a lot in my grooves because I have a lot of dexterity in my bounce. But like my legs and the lining up of things. So I think the fact that it was like so not natural made me obsessed with getting the off things to kind of collide together in a beat.
Interesting. Very interesting. I definitely get like a Headhunters vibe, like Herbie Hancock's Headhunters on certain tracks.
Yeah.
But the two questions I usually like to always end with are, first off, I mean, you touched on it a little bit there, but I'd like to hear it from everybody as well. The music you guys make and the music you guys perform is very complex and difficult and interesting. So I'm curious, how did you guys go about learning how to make music like that?
Well, we'll start with him. He's excited.
Let's see. So, I grew up as a classical violinist, and then I got really sick of it after high school. So I was like, I'm gonna learn how to play electric violin. So then I did a couple of years of just like really just gross prog that should never be listened to ever.
I can tell by the beard.
Yeah. Wretched. So I did that, and then I don't know, I was like 19 and I was sad because I was like, no one likes what I do. So then I went way hard the other way, and I was a champion bluegrass fiddler for a few years. Which goes with the beard too. So I went from like really, really out, unlistenable, experimental to country western.
Okay. The natural progression.
Supernatural. And then I kind of went, why am I doing this? So I just, I played in some rock bands. Then I got really, 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 really into synthesizers and obsessively collected a bunch of synthesizers. It's sad. You go into my garage and you're like, what is this person doing?
And then Summer, you obviously the classical piano
Classical
stuff,
piano, started playing in rock bands in like middle school, and my parents were like, you can figure out how to record your own bands if you want, but we're not going to like take you to a studio. So since they're both musicians, we did have recording gear around, and I started to record my bands, and I was like going back and forth between my recordings and Avril Lavigne, and I was like, how did they make it sound so good? And then I became obsessed with production and mixing, and I got very, very into how production tricks work, how recording works, how mixing works, and I went to school for that, and then kind of, then that seeped into my writing.
Got it.
Yeah.
Production. All of it. I was a drummer to start. I was always into percussion. I'd like sneak into like band lessons like at school, but I always loved the drums, but I couldn't start playing. Like, mom was not about me drumming in the house, so I didn't start playing drums until I was like 18, and then I went wild. I was like fast and hard and fast and just blast beats. I played in a couple of metal bands and stuff. I was like all about it, just like and then I didn't really get into guitar until like I was early 20s, and I just did like super singer-songwriter stuff, like did a bunch of open mics, acoustic music festivals, hippy dippy. And then I got my first electric, and I was like, oh wow, this can mix both things. And I started playing solo stuff, very kind of percussive guitar work.
Okay.
Like a lot of looping stuff and a lot of stuff like that. So I'm like, this is a great blend of the two, because I can have a melody and I can be kind of like thuddy too. So I didn't really get into like the pedal weird texture-y game until about 3 or 4 years ago, because I was like so overwhelmed with all the things you can learn on guitar just as a clean channel, like wow, there's so much just infinite learning here. And then you throw in pedals, I'm like, wow, I just don't want to be that guy who has like 18 computers on his pedal board and doesn't know anything about any of them. So I took a lot of time getting one at a time and like working with them and getting to know them intimately, and now it's just sort of a cluster cuss of chaos, but I like it. It's fun, and especially when we have groups like, and I get to play in groups like Summers where it's a challenge, and I get to learn new things every time we have a new song to play. So it's exciting for me, and yeah, I've basically been drums, guitar, and occasionally I'll bass, but my heart's
With those.
there.
And then the last question I like to ask is, if you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about making music, what would it be?
About making, I went through like a Rolodex of other advice.
So many things.
I got some things to tell you.
What's appropriate to say right now? I spent a lot of time in a lot of bands with a lot of unreliable drummers. And that was always the thing that held bands I was in back. You could never find a drummer who was both good and showed up on time or was committed. I played with a lot of really good drummers that were very hard to wrangle. And I played with a lot of not as good drummers that were very present. So
Get rid of them.
So honestly, one of the biggest motivations for me starting to learn the drums was because I didn't want to play the music that I wanted to make without a drummer, and I felt like that was something that was holding me back. And people were like, it's ridiculous, you're gonna learn stop playing out for a few years just to learn drums to like then play your music. But I wish I had done that even earlier, because I had been thinking about doing that for a while. So past summer, start learning drums even earlier, because it's it's nice to not have to rely on a drummer.
I would just say to my little self, it's okay to be loud. It's totally okay. As a, like, especially when I started playing, I was playing in like super rural, like open mic, country western type places, where if you weren't like playing a cover of Loretta Lynn, they didn't want to hear it. And it was just really hard to be like the only chick at open mic, and then constantly being like tamed, like your guitar is loud, and if it's feeding back, it's your fault, and like all that stuff. Like, it was really hard to be an experimental loud guitarist in that time. And for so long I just let that like turn it down, and like, just be loud. It's okay, be loud, and that's how you learn, just through that, just chaos. I love it.
That's cool.
So it's gonna be down in the dirt, and then we're gonna cross the Rainbow Bridge.
I love these stories.
All right. Don't trust anybody.
Going down. We're driving.
Don't trust anybody just because they say that they should be trusted. or like do your research, be slightly tentative about business, and follow through with things. Like, just don't trust that the show 2,000 miles away is going to be there just because someone said it was there 2 months ago. Stuff like that. That's at a small level. At a bigger level, sign your contracts before you score a film for a notable music group from the 90s that may or may not threaten to murder you in Brooklyn.
I like how vague you're being.
Appropriately
so.
legally vague. But
Go out the rainbow now.
Yeah, where's the
Okay.
rainbow?
Yeah, go out the rainbow.
A lot of dirt.
that's so much dirt. But the thing is these two people right here, I trust in the van to hop in and just drive around the whole country, and you've never let me down. You'll never let me down. I trust you 100%. This is earned trust, and this is the greatest band that I've ever been a part of.
I'll second that.
The rainbow.
See the rainbow.
That was a good
That
rainbow.
was sweet.
Good payoff.
Yep.
And then, do you guys have anything to promote? Anything coming up that you guys want to mention or
We
talk
have a
about?
tour coming up in June. Yeah, we got a June tour. We're doing the Midwest.
It's June.
Which right, it is June.
Are you guys supposed to be here?
Get in the
We
van.
have in a few weeks.
Get in the van.
Yeah.
We're getting in the van, and we're gonna be going to a bunch of cities.
We're going to.
Do it.
I don't know, because we got this
We're
June
planning a
tour,
lot of tours
and
at
then we
once.
got the
planning September.
entirety of September.
Okay.
We're going to a town in many different states in the Midwest. So if you look at our page, you will see
our
them.
page has it all.
The really exciting places that I can mention off the top of my head that we have never been to. We're gonna be in Milwaukee.
So exciting. So exciting.
We're gonna be in
I was gonna say
Milwaukee.
Came in with
We're
so
gonna
much
be in-
confidence.
We're gonna be in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
We're gonna be in Omaha.
Yeah.
We're gonna be
love Omaha.
in Joliet, Illinois.
Oh,
Buzz.
I just drove through there a couple
Our
days ago.
friends,
Yeah.
our friends of Joliet.
We are St. Louis.
St. Louis,
These are all cities.
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Last time we were supposed to play Cincinnati, we all got
Ooh.
the flu and we had to cancel the
Devastating,
show.
so.
So we're coming back.
We're gonna make it this time.
We're gonna be there.
Not
we're gonna
sick.
play it.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're-
And then
But yeah.
if you stay tuned, we will also be doing a West Coast tour in September, and there's an album coming.
Coming.
Far
It's being
away.
written, but it's coming.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys very much for sitting down with me and sharing your wonderful knowledge. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.